We are chin-wagging.
Yeah.
That's it.
A serious chin-wag.
Very much
But
so.
now,
Serious chin
I
wag.
believe the audience gets a chance to chin-wag with us.
Yeah,
at
I
some
see that they
point.
put a mic stand up there. Does that mean we're going to have a little, uh-oh. Hello.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
I want us to know, Paul, do you ever feel like I Love You Man is like real life?
Do you ever think it's like real life?
I'm
sure.
Yeah, I Love You Man. Do you ever feel like it's kind of like real life? Like building friendships, maintaining them over a long period of time,
Yeah.
having real conversations,
Yeah.
face to face.
I get it. I'm feeling you, man. I totally know. You know what? You're a great guy. You're a really great guy. Thank you, man. What's your name? Drew. Nice to meet you, Drew. Let me know if you want to join a fantasy football league. I do think that is a very common thing, and as you certainly, when we're kids, we're in school, we're surrounded by other people. You're open to social events. It's easier to make friends, and as you get older, I think it becomes a little harder, and you're not sometimes always in, a place to really make friends.
Yeah.
I think it does get harder.
Yeah, it's hard.
We get a little more guarded too. I'll talk to you later, Drew.
Yeah, you guys will, yeah.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good. Hey, so you mentioned not really having a fear of public speaking and, not really a phobia of yours. You not so much there, but I wanted to ask, do you think that led to your journey as an actor, a successful actor, and what were the obstacles there? Because obviously different levels here. Like public speaking is something that, as an actor, you're up, you're holding the mic. It seems pretty natural. Walk me through kind of what led to your success and.
I don't know. It seems as if when it came to public speaking, I had a teacher in junior high who was just really funny, and the class was really fun. Huh. And there were a couple of guys that were older than me that were in that class that I saw them do an improv comedy thing, and I was like, that looks like it's just fun. So I had such enthusiasm for it that it almost overrode everything else. And then, I was like such a David Letterman fanatic, and I used to I took a radio and TV class in my school, and I used to make these little movies and videos, and for some reason, I think I just always had this idea that that's what I wanted to do, and even though I would sometimes get a little nervous before a show or something, yeah. I was always the one thing I think in my life that I had real focus and drive and stuck to it. So there are aspects about career, like moving out of the Midwest and trying to pursue it, or leaving my friends and do this, because that's what I need to do this, that I feel like I was somewhat fearless in that regard. But I think the fearlessness that I had in that regard probably spilled over so that fears in other aspects of my life were maybe greater than other people might have. I have a real thing with indecision that kicked in much later.
That's a genuine phobia
in life, where it's like that happened to me somewhere in my 20s, where it's like I was never indecisive when it came to stuff about what I do, but in other aspects of my life, it started to really build up. And that's something that I think I wrestled with for a long, long time, and still do to some extent.
I remember I speak in public for a living. I'm a professor. So I talk to people, crowds like this all the time. But I also perform as a blues musician, and I got to play with Bo Diddley. And they said, Bo's going to come in around 9 p.m., and you guys can maybe practice. And the gig starts at 10. So 10 o'clock rolls around, there's no Bo. And so they're like, well, why don't you get up and just start playing something? So we get up and we start playing, and I'm like, oh my God, we didn't rehearse anything. We don't know what key anything's in, what the tunes are. And what was tricky about that is you have to improvise. You guys are improvisers too. You just have to figure out, you're already on stage. There's no rehearsal. You just have to do it in the moment. And the high stakes forces you to bring this incredible attention to what you're doing and to sort of adapt to what's happening. And I know it can go badly, but it can also be amazingly exhilarating too.
You're completely present. It's one of the only times in your life where you really feel like, okay, I just have to listen and be completely open, and fear has to go away, and you're just kind of locked in. And when you are, if you think about the scenario, you'll get tripped up.
Yeah.
Or if you think about it 30 minutes before it's gonna happen, that's gonna happen. You're like, oh, I can't do it, I'm so nervous. But when you're in the moment and you're doing it, you kind of don't think about it. And then it's exhilarating after the fact in a way.
Yeah, and that, I just wanted to expand on that. Because, I'll be at work and, I'll have to deliver a 30, 40 slide deck presentation. I'll be honest, I'll look at it like the day before, maybe the hour before sometimes. And somehow, by the grace of God, like by the end of the presentation, people are like, good job, you handled business. So is it the pressure that enhances the improvisation, or is it the feeling that when you're done, you know it's going to be a good feeling? What is it that drives you during that particular time?
I don't know, maybe it's part of your brain shuts off and you just kind of have to do it.
I think it is. It's an instinctual thing takes over. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Hi. You teased a bit on some of the unexplained phenomena that you had over.
I know, it was a mistake. I knew it when I said it.
You got to give us something.
No, I just, I've always hesitant to say it because it'll sound pretty nutty. Yeah.
No, so it's all right.
Yeah. Maybe another Chinwag done here.
Yeah.
But it's good because it sounds like some freaky shit happened.
The memoir. Wait for the
That's
memoir.
great. That's awesome.
I mean, yeah, sorry.
Firstly, thank you. I'm a huge fan of both Pauls, Paul Rudd and Paul Giamatti. Specifically, you, Paul Rudd, back to the Clueless days. Friends, Anchorman, Josh and Mike, fucking amazing. But also, thank you to Draymond's mom for saving your life. Just have to say that, shout out. But being here just reminds me of my Bar Mitzvah days, and me being a fellow Bar Mitzvah pro. What was one of your favorite Bar Mitzvah DJ songs to play? What you used to rock out to?
That's really great. Well, the big hits when I was doing this, I'm Too Sexy for My Shirt was...
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. Still, we rocked out to that.
That was it. And then also Can't Touch This was also really popular at the time. And that was, and then occasionally we would throw on Moni Moni and look around because we knew when the kids, here she goes now singing Moni Moni, hey, what, get laid, get fucked. They would all the kids would yell. And all of the grandparents would say, what are they saying? That was always a great time.
Nice. Yeah, that's cool. Thanks, man.
Oh my gosh. Ooh. This is like a fever dream. Sorry. I hope none of my...
It's like a fever dream?
No, like I'm looking, like making sure none of my teachers are here because I'm supposed to be studying for a test, but I'm still in high school, so my parents don't know I'm here, so let's just keep it like that. We're just going to forget about that. But one of my questions is for Paul. It's kind of random. I don't know. It's kind of weird. But I just finished Only Murders in the Building, which is so good if you didn't watch it. So good. And you're in season 3. Really, really good. And for one of the parts in the theater, they come up with like this Gideon type of like energy ghost. And I remember watching one of your interviews with Jason Segel, and you guys, I think we're high or whatever, but what, I don't know. Not that I know any of that, Mom, by the way. But you guys like kind of came up with like this Gideon idea. So did that have anything to do with Only Murders in the Building, or was that just like a coincidence?
No, that was actually when we were doing the press junket for I Love You, Man, and we were completely out of our brains because we'd done so many interviews, and there was a kind of a mannequin in the corner of the room.
Yes, I remember.
And we just started referring to it as Gideon. And Jason hadn't slept. He was hungry, and we were exhausted. And he just kept talking about Gideon, and we lost our brains.
So is that how they got the name, like the ghost and Only Murders in the Building, or was that just like...
that was just that was you'd have to talk to the writers.
Oh, okay.
I just now got your question.
Oh. Okay, that's fine.
I don't know. Probably not.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much all for being here and doing this. This has been a really fun night and totally in love with you since Clueless. He's okay with it. So we talked a lot about spooky things and fears and recurring bad dreams. Do you have a good / weird / happy dream from your youth or adulthood? Either one is fine. Or both?
I've always loved the flying dreams or a dream where I jump from like a super big height and I land and I'm okay. There's something really amazing about the flying dreams. And then strangely, my dad died 15 years ago. 15 years ago today, by the way. Thanks. And but it's what's strange is I very seldom have dreams about him as much as I want to. And every once in a while, I do. And when I do, it's the greatest.
Amazing.
It's the greatest thing ever. And it
thing.
isn't even like there's some kind of information being exchanged or like, did he really come and visit me? I don't know. I hope so.
Can I ask? Is he younger in his dreams? Is he the way he was when he was older?
You know, it's funny.
Like,
he got cancer, and then before he died, he lost. Yeah, I see pictures of him now. Sometimes I had some pictures before he died, and it was like he aged 20 years, and he was on chemo, so he had no hair and all that. But when I see him, he's kind of probably in his. He was in his 60s when he died. He was like probably looking like in his 50s, and so it's like kind of like as I remembered him.
When I dream about my dad, he's young, and his hair is black, jet black, and he looks great. It's wonderful whenever I say, but for some reason I dream about him young. Yeah. I don't see him
Do you
old.
dream about him a lot?
Not very much, no, very seldom.
It's a really
great.
common thing I find sometimes of people who have lost loved ones that they want so badly to have a dream with them and then it doesn't happen. So that on occasion, very rarely.
There's we interviewed a dream specialist, Deirdre Barrett, and she's at Harvard, and we were asking her this question about you want to see, because my father passed away too, and I want to see him. And she said, if you do practice this technique, you can prime yourself to dream of your father, but you sort of have to keep reminding yourself right before you go to bed, like, I would like to have a dream of you. Yeah. And she said it actually works.
She says it works. Yeah.
But not always. It's just very random. But it can improve your ability to dream about a loved one.
Yeah. Well,
very comforting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Rudd, Mr. Giamatti.
Sir.
First and foremost, I just want to say, Paul, They Came Together is my wife and I's favorite comedy of yours. You know what I'm saying?
Thanks. Sorry, I didn't.
They Came Together.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm telling you, we watch it all the time. Every time we get, we do that. Mr. Giamatti, Shoot 'Em Up you are extremely terrifying.
Thank you.
And I love you. I love you for that. Trust.
I was so happy in that movie. When I got killed in the end of that movie and everybody cheered in the theater, it's the happiest I've ever been in a movie. Because I played such a bad guy, everybody cheered and I was like, awesome.
My question is, how do you process and deal with fear right now?
Deal with fear now?
Yeah.
Not well. I don't think I do it well. And it's funny, I don't know. I do things like try to meditate, but I don't do it regularly enough. I do kind of things like that. Not well. I don't do a great job of it.
Yeah, what a great question. I don't think I do either. And my fears are different because I have a family now.
Yeah.
I think that, it's, I think I've resorted more to, I just want to find more instances where I'm laughing. You know, it used to be that I just wanted to, I love watching really dark movies and intense things, and I'd watch the news. I don't watch the news so much anymore. I don't have any social media.
You don't do any of that? You don't, none of it?
I don't do any of it.
Awesome.
And so I never have, though, but I think that I try and make my world a little smaller. I really try and remind myself in the moments of what's like, oh man, anytime you're just laughing with your friends or having a nice time with your family, like that's it. That's the best thing there is. And like, you hope for the best, but it's a constant struggle. My wife this week, especially, I mean, it's been so awful what's been going on in the world. I mean, it's brutal, and it's very, like, there's some really intense conversations happening in my house, and I even told my wife, I'm like, just put the phone down, you know. It's really scary, and we all feel, I think, probably pretty helpless and scared, and you want to be engaged citizens, but I think we all have to just kind of remind ourselves what's good, and try and stay in those spaces a little bit while still being an engaged citizen and doing what we can to try and make the place here a little better while we're here.
First of all, my day started at 11 o'clock. This is not about me, but we drove from Pittsburgh to get here to come and see you three.
Thank you.
So, and all three of you, because the science and the knowledge is amazing, and I love how it all mixes in with, you know, conjecture and fact and silliness and an amazing guest. So, but when you were talking, Mr. Giamatti, about the fact that you could dress up as an orangutan easier than being on stage, I've heard some actors say that it's much more threatening for them to be themselves than to pretend to be somebody else. And I was wondering if, even on stage as a musician, if you go into that role, if it's just more the vulnerability of being yourself outweighs acting and taking on a character for any of you.
I mean, I say that I have a fear of getting up and giving a toast and things because essentially I feel the pressure to be myself, and that scares me. It's been a journey to feel more comfortable being myself. I think I am probably more myself up here, but it brings up all kinds of complicated questions about what myself is anyway, you know? But I mean, I think for me, acting was a very peculiar way to connect with people, but it was the best way I could find to do it. And it was the connection that was the most important thing. Playing somebody else was oddly important. I don't know why. I don't know why that's something that gives me satisfaction, to be somebody else, except that I was able to connect with people, the other actors, and the other people in the audience. So for some reason, that mask gives you the ability to do that. But I feel like as I've gotten older, I don't need a mask so much anymore. And that's a remarkable feeling. It's really cool. It's like I can get rid of the mask a little bit more, and that's nice. But I still like to wear the mask. But then also I begin to feel like, even when I'm acting, maybe I don't need a mask as much.
Right.
I used to think I needed a mask. I needed to, like, a limp and a funny eye and, like, you know, an accent and stuff. And I don't need as much of that anymore. And that, I don't know what that is. That's just some kind of maturity, I guess.
But, you know, it's interesting in that sometimes, you know, I've been, like, even this last year working on Only Murders in the Building. I'm working with you know, Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Meryl Streep. You're right. And you know, and certainly, I mean, those are the three all-time greatest. And Steve Martin, for me, my whole life, that was the guy. And sometimes it's like, okay, just to sit around, I'm nervous. I'm like nervous to be around or just engage in a conversation. I try and get better. I think I'm okay now, but sometimes I've been lucky enough to work with some real legends, and it's you know, I feel like I'm, you know, 14 years old. I'm like nervous. I don't want to be a jerk, and I want to be engaging and interesting, and but when we're acting in a scene, it's a different story.
All that goes away.
It all goes away,
Yeah.
and it's weird. And then it's like you finish. And then it's like you got to talk to him again, and it's like, oh God, I'm so nervous.
Right, that's really true.
And there's like even the mask of just having the scene there and your characters, and you're supposed to engage at work. It's like a switch in your brain, and it changes. And it's a wild thing.
I'll say in terms of music performance, it's a little weird because you want to show, I play a lot of jazz music, and there it's oftentimes instrumental, and you're trying to show something of yourself, but it's like a emotional vulnerability or like rage or like, these softer emotions. But you're not really showing, okay, here's what Steve really believes. These are my opinions. These are my political views. Like none of that is ever like exposed in the music, but something even more important, which is this emotional, like, are you having an emotionally honest experience? And if you play a lot of music, then these greats like Herbie Hancock and Miles, they were able to do that like on command almost and show this part of themselves, but it's emotional identity.
I'm sorry, 2 questions. Do any of you, or have you looked back on your childhoods and noticed a different kind of pretend play that you engaged in that maybe enabled you to be able to play a role now? Does that make sense?
That's a cool question.
Any kind of play we had as a child that sort of fed into. Mm-hmm. I once wrapped myself up in toilet paper from head to toe, and I pretended to be the mummy and walked around. I think I did a lot of play acting like that. I did a lot of kind of acting like that, wanting to play the characters I saw. So it just was a continuum. I don't know that.
I think that I used to, I even as a really little kid, I could do these kind of funny, dumb little dances, and it would make my parents laugh. And I'm still doing it. I mean, I'm making a living doing it.
I actually think that's a really good, because it's like, it's somehow it's uninterrupted.
It doesn't feel
Nothing
different.
stops me from wanting to wrap up like the mummy or him do a stupid dance and make people laugh.
Similar
feeling
it's
in
the
anything.
Same, it's the same. It's
Connection.
the exact same feeling. Same feeling when I was 10 to now. And so I think a lot of those kinds of playing and pretend is
I just
trying
want to
keep
add
it going.
too that a lot of people forget that play is a kind of research. And when kids do it, they're figuring out their bodies, they're figuring out how other people are responding to things. And so we think of it like it's entertainment, but really you guys were researching stuff with the mummy, and then you take that into adult life, and it's why they're such great actors, is they did all this research, and they retained it.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good trip back to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, thank you.
That was a great question. Mine is much more stupid. It's a Halloween question.
Is that Bert Convey on your shirt?
Bert Convey.
Is that Bert Convey?
It sure is. It's Bert Convey.
I loved Bert Convey.
Who doesn't?
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
I
nice.
mean, you all have Convey-esque qualities, and I mean that
thank
as a
you.
compliment. Yeah.
Really? I don't have any Convey.
No, you all
Come
do.
on.
You do.
Okay.
So my wife and I are getting ready to hand out candy for trick-or-treaters. She comes home from the store with a big bag of Almond Joys. She thinks they're delicious. I know they're disgusting, that kids will reject them because it's like a wet coconut shrapnel. So just, can we have you all weigh in? Almond Joys as Halloween candy,
you're
yay
right.
or nay?
You're right.
Thank you.
You're wrong. You're wrong. I agree with your wife.
I'm down with an Almond Joy. I like them mounds, but if you got a Bounty bar and it's from England, it's better.
I take back
Almond
what I
Joy,
said
the
about Bert
almonds are
Convey.
key. The almonds are essential.
I have a nut allergy.
That's the problem. That's the only problem.
Hi. Thanks for coming to my neighborhood because I'm only 3 blocks away. So that's awesome. My question is actually, I'm sorry, Paul squared, but it's for Stephen.
Well, philosophy question.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Well, it's that and mental health, whatever. But I'm very severely ADHD, and I have no fears of, you guys were talking about sharks and heights, and I have literally no fears for that, like none of them. But I think that it made me think of the way that your brain works when you talk. It was not neurodivergent, but diverse. Yeah. It also reminded me when you told me the woman that had no fear. There was another woman that she had epilepsy, and her name was Diane von Dieter or whatever. Oh. Do you remember?
I think I've heard of this.
She was an epileptic. She got cured, but she has no sense of time or pain. So she's one of the best long marathon runners in the world.
I've heard of this one. Yeah.
So I was wondering if you thought maybe because she had epilepsy, do you think there's correlation between neurodiverse people and that kind of behavior?
No, I mean, I don't remember the details of that case, but the general point, I think, is exactly right. The brain is so complex and strange, and it's so able to adjust to... I mean, here's one example of how weird the brain is. You know, in hydrocephaly is when it's called water on the brain, and it's basically in the middle of the brain, there's like a little ventricle area, and it starts filling up with water. And it fills up on a kid who doesn't get the shunt in the back of their head and get it released, it just keeps building and making the head larger and larger. There was a case where the water filled the brain to such a degree during the development that the entire brain spread to the walls of the skull like a sheet of paper. And yet, that brain still functioned beautifully because it evolved to handle that situation. So I think neurodiversity helps us understand like fears, the lack of fears, and all the other complex diversity in human beings.
Yeah, that's cool. I have one more question before I go, but it's for you guys. You said that you love getting dressed up with, as an orangutan or whatever. If you guys decided to not act anymore, how likely would you guys become mascots for professional sports teams?
Become a mascot?
Yeah, it's my dream to do that.
Depends on the mascot. Depends on what I'm going to be. But I would do that. That would be hard, though, wouldn't it? I mean, that seems tough. This seems like they get hot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You'd have to just go to every game. You'd have to leave the house.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd want to.
That's physically taxing. I'm too old. I'm too old to be the Philly fanatic. If I was going to be.
By the way, I'm not on any social media, but there is one site somebody showed me that made me laugh so hard that I'm like, God dang it! I wish I had almost had a Twitter account or something I could look at this every day. And it's mascots in a moment of silence, and it's just pictures of like people that are like they've had it at a stadium. You know, they're all. And then it's this giant mascot. So I highly encourage all of you to really look that one up.
I'm immediately going to look up at it when I get home. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
That's it. That was the last question. Paul Rudd, what a pleasure.
What a joy, Paul Giamatti.
Oh my God, man. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. That's the Chinwag. Thanks, guys. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Chinwag is a production of Treefort Media and Touchy Feely Films. Hosted and executive produced by Paul Giamatti and Stephen Asma. Executive producers for Treefort are Kelly Garner and Lisa Ammerman. Dan Carey is executive producer for Touchy Feely. Our series producer is Rachel Whitley Bernstein. Original theme music by Luke Topp, with additional music by Via Mardot. Oscar Guido is our executive in charge of production. Tom Monahan is head of audio for Treefort. Animation created by Alex Sokol. Editing and mixing by Jeff Neal. Lastly, for more information, go to chinwagpod.fm and find us on Instagram or TikTok at chinwagpod or on Twitter at chinwag_pod.